Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me at Lion Rock, my normal crag, but in a slightly different spot. It's more sheltered. So windy here today. You might hear the noise in the trees as it gusts around. Having to shout a bit, so apologies for that. But I'd much rather do them outside than inside. It's not raining, the sun is nearly out, not quite. Occasionally it comes out a little bit. And the dog is just behind me, as he often is. Today's video, Italian hitches, or Munter hitches. Same thing, which I'll come on to in a second. You might know them as a knot that we know for when we've dropped our belay device or forgotten it in the first place or whatever. But they are more than that, right? I sometimes set out to use them like this on purpose. In a mountaineering sense or a scrambling sense, it can work really well like that. So Americans will usually know them as a Munter hitch. Here in the UK, we'll call it an Italian hitch. In the UK, Munter is like a derogatory phrase for people, so if I say that on a course, people will snigger and stuff, but most people will know that it's the same thing, but we'll tend to call them Italian hitches here. Obviously, other parts of the world, Munter hitch is the default name for it. Perhaps we're both wrong, because it was actually it was invented in the 1950s by two Italian guides, and they actually called it, excuse my Italian pronunciation, I don't speak a word of Italian, the mezzo baracchiello, something like that. And that actually means half of the knot that you'd tie a boat to a bollard on the quayside with, which I assume is the clove hitch, because it kind of is half a clove hitch really, isn't it? If you've watched the channel before, you'll have seen me tie clove hitches often like that. It's a nice way of doing it. And we can actually do Italian hitches very similarly. Instead of sliding, we close the book at that point, and that gives us an Italian. So you do exactly the same thing, but close it. There's other ways, P's and Q's, but fold them together rather than slide them together. I tend to just do it like in the air like that personally, or in the carabiner. It was then popularised by a guide, a Swiss guide called Munter, and that's where that bit of name comes from. And then in the 70s, the Italian Guide Association, they studied it and promoted it, so it got known as the Italian hitch for that reason, as well as the original inventors being Italian. But whatever we call it, it's a nice thing to do. I've put it in a carabiner there on a master point kind of setup, and you'll see that when I pull one way it slides, when I pull the other way it flips then slides. Okay, so what we need to do is make sure that we have a nice chunky carabiner to use it with, like an HMS one or a pear-shaped one. If you're using a chunkier rope than this, and like a narrower carabiner, perhaps a D-shaped one, when it goes to flip through, sometimes it will get stuck halfway and it will need some encouragement to get through, which isn't always a problem, but it's just a tiny fraction of extra faff that I don't want to deal with. So default to using an HMS carabiner with it. When we're belaying up, we can normally just pull on this strand. You might need to encourage it through and do some hand swapping and shuffling. When we go to lower, you just put both hands on this brake strand and shuffle, and down the person goes. You'll notice that the brake position is ropes parallel, not back here like you would normally have the braking position for an ATC style belay device, but ropes parallel, down like that. More friction, safer, simple as that. Okay. Now, you might find that it's less friction to pull through than like a gigajoule or any other guide plate belay device, so it's friendlier on the elbows. I did a video mentioning that the other day, and it just works really well with people actually. Now, when a client comes to me on a belay, I've belayed them up using this. Usually they'll clove hitch themselves into something, but perhaps I'm in a rush or they're not that autonomous yet and they're a bit flustered or something, I might be able to just get them safer, quicker myself. So it's already in that braking position, flip through when I'm raising someone up. What I'm going to do is tie off the belay device. So I kind of cross the ropes over and pull a strand through like that. It's a slippery hitch because it still slips. And then I do a half hitch. And I do another half hitch. That's the kind of the normal British way of doing things, the UK way of doing things. I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strands of rope crossing over the whole lot. In my mind, that's like the same as a hands when I'm teaching. It's just a nice memory jog for people to remember. When I then lead on the next bit of climbing and they strip all this. They can just take all this out, take that out, and up they come as I take the slack in. It's a bit more faffy. I'd rather people probably clove hitched in, but it works. Talking of clove hitches though, you will see people doing this and showing it on Instagram a lot because it looks kind of Gucci and stuff. You do your Italian hitch, same as normal. I'm leaving it undone on purpose because we're going to do something extra with it. I'm bringing the person up at this point, so let's flip it through the way it would be. Okay, get that sitting right. I'll zoom in when I'm doing the editing. Of course, I'd have my hands on at this point as well, and that would be done up. My customer has got to the ledge. We're a nice big ledge. We're not like dangling above mega drops on slippiness and thinking someone's about to fall off, because I'm about to do some slightly weird things with an undone carabiner. Loaded strand, climber strand, here's the brake strand. I can kind of ignore that bit. This bit though does look like, as we've said before, half a clove hitch. I want to put the other half of a clove hitch in there. So I have to undo that. I know it's already undone, but I'd undo that. And then I've got to think about completing the clove hitch. And we know perhaps from already doing clove hitches that it's to do with the orientation of those two strands. If I do that, they've got the same orientation. So I might, when I fold that in, end up with a knot, but it'll be a lark's foot rather than a clove hitch. So I want to do the opposite twist actually. So it's actually looking now like a clove hitch. That's on the front, that bit there is on the back. And then I can clip that in, and it kind of is looking like a clove hitch, but a confused clove hitch because the climber strand is here. So what I actually want to do is take the climber strand out, do it up, and then what we'll be left with is a nice funky looking clove hitch. Exactly as it should be. Some big judgments there, isn't there? Because I'm taking ropes out of undone carabiners and that's their like one lifeline. They're not on anything else. So I've got to be sure they're on a nice happy ledge when I'm doing that, and make sure you practice that, like all of these things, at ground level like I am, or on your sling mountain or whatever it might be, because the last thing you want to do is do a few twists and things and find the ropes just running through a carabiner without any knot at all. It's a nice thing to do. I must admit I don't actually do it that often. I'd rather get them doing their clove hitch or probably just tie it off, but it works. It's certainly a valid thing to do, and you'll see it a bit as well. Often we'll be doing scrambling type stuff, mountaineering type stuff with two people on one rope, and lowering on a wet rope with cold hands, especially if it's a skinny rope. It's a common thing to happen in the UK, the cold wet bit, because it rains a lot and it's cold a lot, right? Lowering one person on an Italian hitch, relatively easy, right, to control, I mean, nice and smoothly. Two, there's a lot more weight on it, and it is still doable in the perfect circumstances, but I wouldn't like to do it on a rope that's wet with cold hands and stuff. So often we'll have an Italian hitch and maybe onto a belay device on us, so we've got like a double whammy of friction. But we can also do what we would call a super munter, okay? There are big considerations with lowering two people. One, the extra weight. Two, ropes do not like sharp edges of any description with just one person's weight. Two people's weights make it actually quite spicy. So this is a thing, but you've got to be really careful about when you use it, okay? So I'm just resetting this lock while I've taken it out there. I can clip that in. I'll leave it undone again because I'm going to do something with it. Lowering position, yes, I'm in the lowering position there, aren't I? Because that's already flipped through climber strand. Brake strand here. I'm going to bring that over that to make a little smile of rope, okay, over the top of it. I'm then going to clip it into the carabiner coming from back to front. As I lock that now, you'll see I've basically got an extra smile. I hear people saying tongue, I prefer the word smile, with my brake strand. Okay, so this is my brake strand. As I lower now, you've just got so much more friction. I still have two hands on here shuffling, but there's so much more friction through there. A super munter, it is a useful one to know. There's a video I saw online of someone lowering like 600 pounds of weight using this. I think divide that by 2.2, I think it is, to give you kilos, but it's a lot more than 2 people basically. It's a nice one to know. I'll come on to abseiling in a minute. It might be nice to know for that as well. But a super munter. Let's reset. So far we've done an Italian hitch, we've tied off an Italian hitch, we've done what we'll call a super munter. Don't see it being used in the UK very often. I guess we'd call it a super Italian, but yeah, super munter is what you'll see online. What I'd really like to be able to do is I'd love to be able to replace my guide mode belay device that I've dropped off the cliff with like a locking version of Italian. We can, which is cool. Do your Italian hitch, same as normal. Okay, do it up, nothing's changed. Go into the raised position. Okay, I'm just getting the orientation here, trying to make it look like an Italian hitch. Brake strand, this is my brake strand that my hands are on here. This is the loaded strand. The loaded strand goes through the carabiner to that strand there. I get myself another carabiner and I clip both of those. So it's the 2 climbers bits basically. Do it up, and then I can pull. Slides nicely, really nicely actually. Maybe because it's pulling the knot apart, slightly nicer than a regular Italian. But if they fall off, the carabiner here is basically defeating that Italian hitch flipping through. So if I get hit by the rock and let go, and then that rock hits my mate down there, yeah, we're both in a bad way obviously, but at least they haven't started plummeting all the way down the crag. It's a real nice one. There is another version of that, okay? Remember, with all of these, you can rewind them and pause them and stuff to look at bits and pieces. Like I say, I'll try and zoom in as best I can on the editing as well. Which ends a which. So, same again, let's flip that through. What am I doing? I'm bringing the person up, aren't I? Okay, now brake strands over here, climbing strands down here. What I want to do this time is clip a carabiner into that one. Okay, I'm actually going to do it behind because you see the climber side's coming out the front, so if it's coming out the front I want the carabiner at the back, and all it's going to do is clip the climber's rope behind everything. Do it up. It was already in the raising position. Again, this comes through super nice. Smooth. What do you think happens when the climber falls off because we've been hit by that imaginary rock again? Obviously I wouldn't let go, but maybe I would let go because I've been hit by that rock and my climber's been hit by that rock. Again, it's defeated that Italian hitch, that Munter hitch, coming through and flipping over. So it is a locking version of the Munter, which is pretty cool really, isn't it? I like it. You have got the issues that if you're using that then and you need to go to lowering, then you've got some faff to do. It could be that they're on a nice ledge and you need to lower, or you just take the locking bit out of it and go back to a normal Italian. It flips through and away you go. So if they can unweight it, fine, easy, but if they can't unweight it, some thought required. Okay, last thing then is, let's say belay my mate up, our epic day without belay devices, and we need to abseil down. I'm going to just double the rope up into there so we're good to go. I can use an Italian hitch to abseil on. People will tell you it twists and kinks the rope. It does. It doesn't twist it quite as much as the internet would have you believe, but it can be a bit problematic. If I'm having to like abseil one pitch down, I'll probably use an Italian hitch. If I was in the middle of a long route in the Dolomites, I got multiple abseils to do, then maybe I would rather use some kind of carabiner brake. And I've done videos on that before on the channel. You can search them a long time ago, COVID times I think. It twists the rope, and if I've got to then pull the rope again and again, it's putting more and more twists in it each time and getting a bit more tangled each time. Each time the risk of a tangle going up and getting stuck in the bolts or whatever it might be up there is increased, and perhaps I'm in a spicy position if that happens. So it works, but it's got some thought required to do it. All I'm going to do is do exactly the same thing. Hang on, sat on the rope here. Get myself Italian hitch in both strands because I'm on 2 bits. Clip it in, shuffle around a bit. There we go. Do that up, and we've got an Italian. I can lean back, that will flip through, and away I go. Now, there's friction here, there's more friction there, but if I want a prusik, some form of backup, then that'll pull that down there. I've got to be careful about which side. Don't want rope rubbing on the barrel, it does weird things to open it and stuff, so bring it across perhaps. I think having a prusik trumps the perfect braking position. You could put a prusik on here, but then there's slight pros and cons of all of these things, but personally I'd probably rather go prusik on braking strands, have it down there, except it's not necessarily ideal. Remember the super munter though, there is a possibility that I could be abseiling on one line. So let's say I've got a fixed line, it's a skinny rope, it gets me all the way to the floor, and I decide that leaving the rope is the best thing to do in an emergency. One strand of skinny rope, and again perhaps it's wet and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a single Italian isn't the most inspiring thing, so I could do that super munter here, and that would give me that extra friction, and that would actually be a lot nicer, I think. So the Italian hitch, the Munter Hitch, we've discovered it is the same thing. We've discovered why it's called those names, and we've hopefully discovered that actually there's quite a few different things about it. So yes, it's very useful. We can belay a leader with it and stuff as well, perhaps even directly off the anchors. That would be another video. It slips, but perhaps that slippage is a nice thing in a full impact forces, etc, etc. So the humble Italian actually has loads of nuances, a good number of uses, and actually a lot of pros to it, not forgetting the cons of, you know, things like the kinked rope and stuff like that. But I hope the video's been interesting. If you're going to have a go with these things, especially the slightly weirder versions people might not be so familiar with, like I say, practice them down somewhere like this or on your banisters, whatever it might be, a nice safe place before you're, you know, halfway up something more consequential. Hope that's been an interesting one, provoked some thought and all that kind of stuff. If you've liked the video, click the like button, smash the subscribe button, follow us on Instagram, give us a follow there, that's massively appreciated. Use the buy me a coffee link to support the channel and the boy as well, he gets some treats out of it. That always blows my mind as to how generous people are, so thank you very much for that. Chuck those questions in the comments below, you know the score with that. I get back to everyone sooner or later. It does take me a while, but I get there eventually. But as always, massive thanks for watching. More videos coming up very soon.